Crossing+Climbing Technology+No System+No harem+Gou+Cosmic Warship+Civilization Conflict+Star Wars, non-brainless and refreshing articles, with a foundation and development process. The level of technology is gradually rising from low levels. High technology, black technology, and super technology will gradually emerge with the improvement of civilization level. During Enron's live exploration, he accidentally traveled to a wildlife planet within the parallel Pleiades star cluster. By chance, a fleeing human was saved and it was discovered that they had been brutally enslaved by an alien race to the brink of life and death. Enron, who possesses advanced technological knowledge on Earth, resolutely shouldered the great task of liberating humanity in leading them to climb the technological tree. Developing the technology industry, expanding production capacity, crushing the alien race with a powerful technological flood, developing space technology, and building an interstellar fleet to enter the universe. With the advancement of civilization level, a mysterious episode of Star Wars that has been shrouded in dust for over 1.5 million years has been uncovered. The origin of humanity, the bloodline between our Chinese compatriots on Earth and humans on the wild planet, and the origin of the mythological legend of the heavenly court and the creation of humans by Enron. The human beings on Earth in the solar system are being confined by extraterrestrial civilizations and are trapped in periodic and tragic cycles of civilization. Now is the seventh stage of civilization, facing the fate of being cleansed by extraterrestrial civilizations again at any time. People are like knives, and I am like fish and meat, and our Chinese bloodline compatriots on Earth are in danger. The vast human civilization, which shares the same roots and origins as China, resolutely took action under the leadership of Enron, and a grand and fierce war of liberation and revenge began from the solar system. This time, my Chinese bloodline will neither be the cutting edge nor the meat. We must be the supreme sword-wielding civilization in the entire universe. Chapter 1. Time traveling during live streaming. You are listening at novelfull.audio. P.S. The setting of this book is to develop technology from the stage of agricultural civilization, climb the technology tree, and there is a development process in the initial stage, which is a bit plain at the beginning. However, as the plot progresses and the initial industrial system is established, the pace will accelerate until around 100 chapters. Computers, modern fighter jets, missiles, rockets, nuclear weapons, space technology, black technology, and super technology will emerge one after another. Dear readers, this is the voluntary brain storage facility. Main text, North Africa, around 3:30 p.m. local time. On the east side of the center of the Sahara Desert, in the center of a huge basin, a super strong sandstorm was born. The cyclone carried a large amount of yellow sand, rising and rolling, rapidly spreading from east to west. Wherever it went, it was like rolling black clouds, blocking the sky and sun. About a few hundred meters ahead of the sandstorm, a large military armored modified vehicle measuring 8 or 9 meters long, painted in desert camouflage, is speeding rapidly. At high speed, a deep trajectory is formed on the sand, and a large amount of sand and dust is carried up from behind, floating in the air. It seems that they are fleeing the terrifying disaster pursuit. This scene is reminiscent of the huge facial sandstorm in the Hollywood blockbuster, The Mummy, with a magical visual experience of chasing the male protagonist while flying for his life. Old ties, shock. Is this scene like a Hollywood blockbuster, exciting and exciting? Wow, ha ha ha. On the driver's seat in the car, there is a handsome man in his 20s, who is capable and small in size, with a light yellow skin color, and looks like the peak beauty period. He played the role of the legendary hero in the Hong Kong version. At this moment, he was driving a tank, blowing cool air conditioning, and excitedly driving a live broadcast to interact with numerous fans. Faced with such a terrifying sandstorm, he was fearless and had the courage of a skilled craftsman. In the dashboard area in front of the steering wheel, the electronic display shows the temperature inside the car at 27 degrees Celsius and the temperature outside the car at up to 46 degrees Celsius. Oh! Ange is mighty, this is a desperate live broadcast, said a fan. Another fan worshipped and posted, YYDS. Thank you, brethren, for risking his life to bring us thrilling scenes. We must support it. Give us a wave of rewards. The wealthy fans took action and released 5 waves of reward gifts in a row. 666, really wealthy. A group of fans became envious. I have only seen such a shocking scene when I was young, and my heart was truly touched. Exclaimed a female fan. Touched, that's easy to handle, let's make a promise with our own lives, to put pressure on and go, wow haha. Thinking out, fans immediately joked. Is there any danger, Ange? It's so close that even the screen is trembling with fear. And a handsome guy can attract fans by his looks, but he uses his true strength to attract fans. I admire him, said a fan of the flower lover. At this time, the popularity of the live broadcast room skyrocketed, and the netizens who rushed to watch quickly climbed from less than 10,000 to over 100,000 in just a few minutes, with the number of people still struggling to rise. Fortunately, it is a first-class live streaming platform in Huaxia, with excellent technology that has not been dropped due to a sudden increase in the number of people. The anchor's name is Enron, with a tall and well-proportioned figure. He is 26 years old and from Lu province. He retired as a Special Forces soldier. After retiring, he worked as a bounty hunter, played underground black boxing, and worked as a mercenary. Long-term active in high-risk and turbulent areas such as the Middle East and North Africa, people on the road are nicknamed Desperate Little Langjun. After making a few unexpected windfalls and gaining financial freedom, he did not return to his old business. Instead, he explored and played live streaming on the African continent, fulfilling his childhood dreams. Traveling through more than 10 countries in Africa, this legendary and mysterious place has also attracted a large wave of fans. Today is the 15th day of his live broadcast of self-driving across the Sahara Desert. The purpose of this live adventure is: firstly, let fans experience the unique charm of this super desert. The second is to explore the legend that has been passed down in the West to this day. A certain Grand Marshal of the Hans Cat Army plundered a large amount of wealth on the North African battlefield during World War II. Legend has it that part of it is hidden deep in the Sahara Desert. Explore and search for legendary lost treasures, live stream to broaden the horizons of fans, and finally feel at ease. At this moment, the super sandstorm caught up with the tank in just a moment. The sound of large particles of sand hitting the steel plate of the car body gradually sounded outside, and the light inside the car gradually dimmed. Enron, whose line of sight was obstructed, slowed down the car's speed, and the live broadcast followed closely behind the outside camera, with only the subtitles below scrolling intermittently. Turning on the lighting, he looked at the car's signal indicator light, which was green and yellow, occasionally flashing red. The satellite signal transmission had been significantly affected. Old ties, this sandstorm has seriously affected the satellite signal transmission, and it may be difficult to maintain the smoothness of live broadcast next. Sorry, old irons, the visibility outside is less than 3 meters. I have to concentrate on driving. However, the live broadcast will remain on until there is no signal at all. I hope we can persist for a longer time. Enron, with a somewhat helpless expression, notified everyone in the live broadcast room. Ange, we understand. You can drive with peace of mind. Be careful, brethren. Ange, pay attention to safety. Engo, we are waiting for you to break out of the sandstorm. Rolling subtitles popped up with replies from fans. Ka. Ka. Roaming and rumbling. Suddenly, about 20 meters in front of the car, a series of dark blue lightning bolts lit up in the air, and the thunderous sound of explosions echoed continuously. In the originally low visibility sandstorm, the sand and dust filled the air seemed to enter a mysterious blue space under the transmission of strong light and lightning. At the center of the space, where several lightning bolts intertwined, a colorful spherical light cluster suddenly emerged out of nowhere. This is. In the blink of an eye, the light cluster rapidly expanded into a radius of several tens of meters like bubbles, instantly engulfing the slowly approaching tank. The advancing tank came to a sudden stop, and all electronic devices inside the vehicle were inexplicably interrupted. Surrounded by enchanting colorful glow, it penetrated into the car. Enron, who didn't have time to be surprised, felt a tingling and cold sensation pass through her body. Her brain suddenly froze like a computer crash, and then she lost consciousness in front of her. If someone were present at the scene at this moment, they would see the huge rainbow-shaped ball of light that engulfed Enron and the car for several minutes. Then slowly contracting towards the center into a bright seven-colored ball, hovering in the air for several breaths, as if exhausting the last bit of energy, slowly fading until it completely disappears. The rumbling thunder around still kept ringing incessantly, and lightning flashed one after another. However, there is no longer Enron and his chariots there. Shortly after Enron's disappearance, a secret file of the Chinese military recorded the following statement. Former deputy captain of a certain mobile special operations brigade in China, Enron, went missing on May 8, 2028 in a super sandstorm in the center of the Sahara Desert in North Africa, and his whereabouts have since been unknown. After hearing this news, his fans would sigh every time they remembered it. This world may forever lose an excellent retired Chinese soldier, a popular anchor, and a seasoned explorer. His deeds will gradually be forgotten by people as time passes. In another world, his legend may have just begun. Chapter 2. Encountering a giant beast attack. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Damn it, what's the situation? Why did you suddenly faint? I haven't stayed up late lately, and I haven't had low blood sugar. Is it that weird lightning? Enron woke up leisurely, shaking his slightly dizzy head, stretching his stiff limbs and waist, and muttering with a suspicious expression. Looking up at the outside of the car, the sunset shot westward, around 5 or 6 p.m. in the afternoon. At this moment, the car was parked in a slightly low-lying sandy area. It was very calm outside, with no sandstorms or wind. The interior of the car is quite stuffy, with some sweating on the forehead and back. The tank and central air conditioning in the car have already stopped running. It's broken. Shouldn't the car be struck by lightning? It would be tragic to think that the car was still driving when I fainted, and if it really broke down. In the center of this vast desert, losing the necessary conditions for survival is the only way to wait for death, unless a miracle occurs. He quickly got up and checked the condition inside the car, front, back, left, and right. The main control switch showed a closed state at this time, and no abnormalities were found in any other equipment. Quickly turning on the main control power, a familiar buzzing sound of equipment sounded, and the equipment in the car flickered and began to operate. Then I felt a refreshing cool breeze blowing over, and the car air conditioning started running. In no time, it dissipated the stuffy and hot environment inside the car. Fortunately, there was a false alarm. Enron's nervous heart relaxed. Feeling a bit thirsty, he went to the right side of the middle of the trunk, next to the bedside where he usually sleeps, and took a bottle of pure water from the refrigerator's refrigeration room to get it cold. The air conditioning in the refrigerator hasn't weakened much, so I shouldn't have been unconscious for too long. Then he took a few large sips and slowly breathed a sigh of relief. He wiped away the sweat from his forehead and returned to the driver's seat to adjust his posture. Didi, the satellite signal is abnormal and unable to locate the current location. Please check the system and external equipment. Suddenly, the central intelligence system in the car sounded a warning sound. There is no signal. Is the signal blocked here? Upon hearing the prompt, Enron was puzzled and reached out his right hand to click on the center console screen to close the prompt box. Well, drive to a high and open area to see how the signal works. Looking out the window of the car, there was a tall sand dune 300 to 400 meters away. He started the tank, and there was a slight buzzing sound of mechanical activation before slowly driving forward. Hey, why hasn't there been any signal yet? 2 minutes later, Enron had already parked his car on the sand dune, but the satellite signal was still missing. Is it that the onboard satellite equipment is malfunctioning? It shouldn't have been damaged by lightning, Enron guessed in her heart. So I came to the back of the right car seat, where there was an escalator directly leading to the roof next to the car seat. A person grabbed the escalator and opened the electric sunroof to the roof. A heat wave hit the outside of the car, and the satellite transceiver was half a meter in front of the skylight. No damage, the signal light is working normally. It's strange, where is the problem? After checking the equipment, Enron was confused. Hooking. What sound? Is there another sandstorm? Suddenly, a clear whirring sound came. He didn't think much either, standing on the roof habitually observing the direction of the sound source. What's the situation? That's a moving sand dune. Is there such an exaggerated moving sand dune? I'm not dizzy, right? Enron rubbed her eyes, feeling a bit unsure, but this observation startled him. I saw that more than 100 meters below the sand dune where he was located, there were 3 large sand dunes arched high on the flat sand ground. Driven by some unknown force, they moved towards him at an extremely fast speed, and along the way, sand and dust exploded, spreading everywhere. No, that's not a naturally moving sand dune. Enron, who had keen observation, immediately realized something was wrong. There is danger. The instinctive crisis intuition honed from years of military service told him that danger was approaching. Without enough time to think about it, he immediately jumped into the car and got into the driver's seat. He quickly started the tank, turned the steering wheel, and stepped on the power switch. The tank quickly rushed down the sand dunes, heading in the opposite direction to the 3 eerie approaching sand dunes. At this moment, bomb. 20 meters in front of the car, on the originally calm sandy ground, it suddenly swelled and exploded, and the dust and sand instantly spread to a radius of 20 or 30 meters. A hazy giant shadow hidden in the dust and sand appeared faintly. Squeezing. A sudden and piercing brake sound sounded. What fark? Desert behemoth. Enron, who was driving, was shocked by the sudden scene and his mouth was wide open, his heart almost reaching his throat. Hurry to brake, fortunately the speed is not too fast, otherwise you would have collided head-on. At first glance, it is not a good type, coupled with the instinctive fear of unknown creatures, how dare to delay and drive the tank backwards crazily. Enron looked in a direction, the steering wheel slammed, the switch pressed to the bottom, and the massive tank rushed out like a petite racing car, with a towering dust rising from behind. What kind of monster is that? Giant pangolins. Giant Mongolian death sandworms. I've never heard of this thing in the Sahara Desert. Enron, who was frantically driving away, looked at the oncoming behemoth in the rearview mirror with a corner of his eye, feeling shocked in his heart. Bomb. Bomb. The car had just escaped for about 100 meters when it exploded on the sand ahead, revealing 2 hazy giant shadows in the dust. Damn it, the retreat has been blocked. He quickly observed the situation around him and found that the front, back, left, and right retreat routes of the tank had been blocked. Since that's the case, then let's fight. Ultimately, it was the soldiers who stepped forward, and blindly retreating was not in line with his original intention, and his fighting spirit was also aroused in his heart. With a calm heart, an iron-blooded killing intent suddenly emerged. Quickly turning the steering wheel, driving the tank to a slightly higher sand dune next to it, stopping and quickly flashing to the rear of the tank, slapping a red button. With a crisp snap. The next second, the roof quickly bounced open like an automatic window, and then a dark-colored machine gun hidden above the roof automatically rose to the top of the car. Enron jumped onto the roof of the car, grabbed the weapon handle with one hand, and skillfully manipulated it. Click. Click. A sound of firearm structure operation rang out. The entire process, from parking to touching the machine gun, was completed in just a few blink of an eye. "Old buddy, it's finally your turn to make an appearance." With his hand caressing the mechanism cannon, Enron's heart was calm, and his gaze remained indifferent as he gazed at the approaching behemoths. At this moment, the giant shadows surrounding the chariot were clearly visible, and 6 unknown scaled beasts, so massive that they overturned Enron's worldview, appeared before his eyes. One by one, with their terrifying heads held high, they looked down at the tanks in front of them. Compared to the head of a giant beast, Enron's tank is like a larger toy tank, appearing petite. The giant beast has a body length of at least 40 to 50 meters, and its body is thicker than the train carriage. Its yellow scales, as big as a basin, are densely covered around its body, giving it a strong sense of oppression. The overall appearance is extremely similar to the elongated pangolin, but it is supergiant. The ferocious head and terrifying fangs make the giant beast look countless times more terrifying than pangolins. Sigh. How could such monsters appear on Earth? This is not the Godzilla movie world. Enron was shocked by the terrifying image of the giant beast and felt a chill. Kill. The brave man who met on a narrow path quickly threw away his fear and decisively pulled the trigger. Bang bang bang. The mechanism cannon in hand frantically strafed the giant beast swarm approaching the tank. A thick orange-yellow bullet chain shot fiercely towards the rapidly approaching behemoth's head. Bang bang bang. Ong ong. I saw a high-speed projectile hitting the head of the giant beast. The scales as big as a basin collided with a high-speed bullet, causing sparks to shoot in all directions and producing loud noises. Under the tremendous kinetic energy bombardment of the warhead, the painful beast vigorously shook its head and retreated, while emitting thick and terrifying roars that shook its mind. Sleeping in a groove, without showing any signs, I actually blocked it. Rubbing her buzzing ears, Enron's heart was shocked beyond measure. A 20mm caliber machine gun, the shell is still a full-power projectile with armor-piercing performance, and close-range shooting surprisingly did not break through the defensive scales of the giant beast. What a terrifying defense force this is. I'm afraid the vast majority of military light armored vehicles on Earth do not have such strong defense. Damn it, I don't believe it's impossible to break through. Ah! Bang bang! Enron, who didn't believe in evil, roared wildly as he pulled the mechanism cannon, firing a bullet at the 6 giant beasts, causing them to roar incessantly. He knew that if he couldn't repel these terrifying beasts today, there would be only a dead end waiting for him. Fire chains shot out one after another, and a faint smoke filled Enron's body. The shells, more than twice the size of an adult's finger, were thrown onto the roof one after another and piled up at a visible speed to the naked eye. Finally, under the relentless attack of Enron, the defense scales of the 6-headed giant beasts began to shatter and fly, and the bullets finally hit the skin and flesh, causing bloodstains, but only for that. The giant beast vigorously swung its painful and bloody head, roaring in pain as it quickly retreated backwards. Quickly diving into the sand, arching up moving sand dunes, followed by a massive body that was 40 to 50 meters long sinking into the sand, disappearing in just a few breaths. Bang bang bang. Click. Click. The roar of the machine gun came to an abrupt end, clearly indicating that the ammunition had been depleted. Oh no, we ran out of ammunition. Enron's heart thumped. Did the giant beast run away? Enron felt a little uncertain in her heart. I really ran away. After observing the surrounding environment multiple times, it was confirmed that the giant beast had disappeared without a trace. Only then did Enron let out a deep breath of turbid air. Sitting on the roof of the car, his hands still trembling as he pulled out a Hua-Z from his pocket. One hand trembled slightly and took out a lighter to light. Inhale. Exhale. Enron took a deep breath and then slowly exhaled. The tense nerves began to relax with the white smoke exhaled. Chapter 3. Crossing across different stars. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. What kind of monster is this, mutated pangolin? It's so terrifying. He smoked Huazi while staring at the sand where the giant beast disappeared, lost in confusion. At this moment, Enron couldn't figure out how this giant beast came about. You should know that he has been in Africa for quite some time, having heard of all kinds of secrets and terrifying legends, but he has never heard of such terrifying and massive monsters in the Sahara Desert. Forget it, it's better to leave here as soon as possible. A finger flick quickly burned to the butt of the cigarette, and slowly stood up, habitually observing the surrounding environment. Looking up at the dusk sky. Suddenly, the whole person seemed to have applied a immobilization technique and remained motionless. He rubbed his eyes and looked again. Isn't it? There are 2 moons in the sky. Is it a phantom moon? It's not like that. After a brief discernment, I denied the idea of the phantom moon. I saw, following his gaze, 2 large and 1 small half-moons hanging in the sky on the distant eastern horizon. The larger half-moon is blue and white in color, with smaller ones 4 or 5 times the size, and the smaller half-moon is light silver in color. Dreaming, I must be dreaming, I must have been struck by lightning and haven't woken up yet. This is a dream within a dream. Enron couldn't quite believe it in her heart. Only in this way can we explain the previous supergiant pangolin monster and the 2 moons hanging in the sky now. He instinctively tugged at the flesh on the inner side of his thigh. Hiss. It hurts too much, isn't it? A dream. It's just me. I've traveled through time. He exerted too much force, and a sharp pain hit him, causing his face to twitch. Rao Enron has gone through countless trials and tribulations of life and death, and his will is as strong as a rock. Faced with this situation, he also began to panic. He stood on the roof of the car, gazing at the 2.5 moons on the horizon, speechless for a long time. Did you really cross over? Was it caused by the enchanting rainbow glow before fainting? System, come out of the system, come out quickly. Enron shouted in her heart as if holding on to the last straw. I know you're here, System. Don't tease me, come out quickly, he shouted in his heart, not giving up. For a long time, there was no response in my mind. No System. Looking up at the boundless desert and the direction where 6 terrifying beasts had just disappeared. Enron bitter-gourd-faced and shook his head. Fortunately, he was well prepared for this live desert adventure, otherwise it would have been too tragic if he had just crossed the river and stumbled. When others travel, whether it's soul-piercing or body-piercing, the basic configuration has a system with different functions by their side. With a golden finger, they are invincible. And he not only doesn't have the golden finger of the system, but also starts in a hellish mode. He accepted his fate and sat down again, aimlessly surveying the surrounding sand-sea environment. Huazi was thrusting non-stop one technique after another in his hand, and at this moment, he showed extreme inner restlessness. It's getting dark, we need to find a safe place to spend the night. Flipping a cigarette butt, Enron instinctively reached into his pocket and dug again, fumbling for a while, but there was nothing left, only an empty box. At some point, a pack of Huazi had already been drawn. Looking around, within the hazy vision, there is a rocky mountain range over 100 meters high in the distance. That's it. He made up his mind, slightly calmed down, entered the car, launched the tank, and rushed towards the distant mountains at a speed of over 100 kilometers per hour, taking advantage of the gradually darkening sky. Wherever it passed, a long strip of sand and dust drifted in the air behind it. 3 days later, on a rocky sand dune that was about 30 meters high, there was a huge fan-shaped black mirror-shaped artificial object that reflected bright white light under the reflection of a large sun in the air. It was the solar charging device deployed by the Enron tank. I love you walking alone in the dark alley, I love the way you don't kneel. I have loved you and faced despair, unwilling to cry. I love you from the wilderness, never borrowing anyone's light for a lifetime. The audio system inside and outside the car is playing a passionate old song called The Lone Brave. At this moment, Enron was holding a bottle of beer in his left hand and drinking it, while his right hand lit a flower, occasionally taking a sip and spitting it out. Lying lazily in the driver's seat, half squinting his eyes as he gazed out the car window. In the lower right corner of the line of sight, the blue electronic display screen shows the temperature outside the car at 40 degrees and inside the car at 26 degrees. Following his gaze, one can see the distant azure sky, where two semicircular celestial bodies, one large and one small, hang. The small ones are like the moon, pale silver, and the large ones are blue and white. That's right, he really traveled. 2.5 months of stars appeared in the sky, and the night was no longer the familiar brilliant starry sky of Earth, but a few strands of starlight. The starry sky was dark and very eerie. He traveled to an unknown planet, also in a vast and boundless desert. The air pressure remains constant, allowing one to freely breathe the atmosphere of this planet, which is no different from the air on Earth. He has been carefully exploring this vast sea of sand for 3.5 days, driving an electric-powered tank. Fortunately, we have not encountered such terrifying monster attacks again. Surprisingly, this place has reached 36 hours in a day, which is 12 hours more than the Earth. However, the planet's gravity here is almost no different from Earth's. A can of 550 milliliters of beer weighs 560 grams on an electronic scale. Even though Enron, who had just learned about his time travel, accepted his fate and did not have a system to add him, he still persisted in trying to see if he could jump like the male lead John Carter in Alien Battlefield, flying high and far like Superman. However, the result was very disappointing, as they were unable to obtain such a pretentious superpower. I have been breathing in the alien air for over 3 days and have not been infected by unknown viruses and bacteria, which have caused me terrible strange diseases. Eat and drink as you please, without any discomfort, still lively and healthy. It seems like it's just a change of planet and desert. During the day, a big sun still hangs high in the sky, rising in the east and setting in the west, illuminating the whole world. Except for a 12-hour-long day, with an additional blue moon in the night sky and a dim starry sky, everything else remained as usual. After 3.5 days, Enron drove very cautiously towards the sunrise direction for over 1,800 kilometers. Unfortunately, no traces of human or intelligent biological activity have been discovered. Occasionally, I see some unknown crustacean insects and small desert lizards resembling rodents. There are no birds in the sky, let alone planes or aircraft with white lines passing by. There are no familiar green states emerging in the desert, let alone familiar animals. The only peculiar thing is that in some relatively deep and low-lying sand gullies, it is found that there are some cactus-shaped, but supergiant ones, as large as medium-sized yurts, which is very exaggerated. The pale green surface of the cactus is covered with needles the size of chopsticks, ranging from 3 to 5 scattered in depressions to several dozen connected in patches. Pierce the green skin, which is 2 inches thick and rich in moisture, with a light yellow sponge-like flesh inside. Then, a thick, off-white liquid will seep out, quickly filling the damaged opening. Just discovered that it looked like some small round-roofed houses in a village from a distance. Enron, who was worried at the time and had been searching for a long time without success, was somewhat anxious and excited. I thought there were people there, but when I got closer, I was disappointed to see the exaggerated supergiant cactus balls. I had to accept the tranquility of reality and calm down with the mentality of, take it as you come. Just thinking about it, maybe coming here is also a good choice. In the past world, there were no relatives, and there were no worries. Perhaps there is still some regret in my heart that I cannot continue to serve my country as a Chinese soldier, nor can I witness the great rejuvenation of China, nor the great historical moment when my country regained its treasure island. At this moment, Enron's tank was charging, and the huge black fan-shaped mirror on the roof was the unfolded automatic folding solar panel system. The total expansion area is up to 220 square meters, using flexible optoelectronic conversion material gallium arsenide substrate. The latest cutting-edge preparation technology greatly expands the convertible spectral range of sunlight, with a photoelectric conversion efficiency of up to 0.6 kWh per square meter. Under normal sunlight conditions, it can generate 120 degrees of electricity per hour. The battery panel has strong environmental resistance and an effective service life of about 15 years, Earth years. If maintained well, it can be used for an additional 5 to 6 years. The solar panels are designed with body fusion technology and are hidden inside the protective armor on both sides of the roof and the trunk. Chapter 4. Material Reserve. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. The only consolation benefits are Enron's tanks and the materials and equipment stored on them. He was fortunate to have foresight and made sufficient preparations for this expedition to the Sahara Desert. Otherwise, I might not have lived for 2 days on this unknown and unfamiliar planet. His tank was modified from Damo's military Kamaz Typhoon K armored transport vehicle, removing the original diesel engine and other systems, removing some unnecessary combat components, and expanding the space on both sides of the body. After modification, the total length of the vehicle is 8.8 meters, with an outer width of 3.4 meters, an inner width of 2.7 meters, and a height of 3.2 meters. It is equipped with a 450 kilowatts high-power and efficient permanent magnet synchronous drive motor. After modification, the total weight of the vehicle is 16 tons, capable of carrying 10 tons, with a maximum road speed of 140 km per hour and an off-road speed of about 110 km per hour. All-electric drive, with a theoretical range of up to 4,000 km, ensuring a safe long range. The tank is equipped with a 2,000 kg, still in the top-secret stage, super energy storage battery pack, which can store 3.5 kWh per kilogram, nearly 4 times that of lithium batteries on the market, and can store 7,000 kWh when fully charged. This set of battery packs and that set of solar panels cost Enron tens of millions of meters to obtain military control products through secret channels in the black market. Fortunately, after his retirement, he made a few windfalls and was wealthy. As a senior retired soldier, especially one who has been living in turbulent Africa for a long time, one cannot help but have weapons and equipment that are considered a second life. The tank is equipped with a small arsenal. One 20mm caliber vehicle-mounted machine gun with nearly 400 rounds of ammunition reserves. Installed on the rear waist of the tank, equipped with an electric lifting system, it can be hidden inside the trunk and can also be raised to the roof for 360-degree free shooting. However, when dealing with the 6 beasts, the ammunition had already been depleted. A 14.5mm caliber vehicle-mounted heavy machine gun with 3,000 rounds of ammunition of various types. A 14.5mm high-precision military long-range sniper, compatible with ammunition and machine gun ammunition. A 7.62mm sniper rifle with 2 bases and 400 rounds of ammunition. 2 modified 14.5mm large-diameter Desert Eagles, equipped with a powerful wind artifact and 2 boxes of ammunition. A military powerful sniper crossbow with several feathers. A set of military remote-controlled reconnaissance drones with automatic return function, 2 sets of backup charging power battery packs, convenient for continuous task execution, with a single cruising radius of 50 km and a detection range of 50 km. A small semi-automatic multifunctional component processing machine. A small semi-automatic firearm rifling maintenance and processing machine, mainly used for regular firearm maintenance and weapon ammunition modification. Several special operations knives and daggers, and 1 multifunctional engineering shovel. 1 individual ranging telescope, capable of observing targets within a range of 20 km. 6 sets of military high-power long-range walkie-talkies with an effective communication distance of 15 kilometers. The daily necessities and material reserves on the car are quite complete. 680-liter capacity refrigerator in the car. 2 top-of-the-line chrysanthemum smartphones. A high-performance high-capacity military laptop. A set of laser printers. 2 sets of conformal water storage tanks with a capacity of 1,500 liters each. A set designed in the shape of a bed, with people sleeping on top and fresh water stored on the bottom. The other set is integrated with the refrigerator at the bedside, which is embedded in the center of the conformal water tank and stores water around it, which can cool down the heating situation on both sides of the refrigerator. Currently, after nearly 20 days, about 1,000 liters of fresh water have been consumed. Mainly due to the bold bathing, personal hygiene, and cleaning of utensils before crossing the border. After crossing over, he dared not use it so boldly and began to calculate carefully. Several sets of various clothes, shoes, and socks can be worn for several years. Across from the bed is a small restaurant used for cooking. Several cooking utensils for cooking. Next to it is a small independent bathroom, which can be used for showering, washing, and solving sizes. There are enough toiletries and hygiene supplies. However, in normal times, Enron and Xiaohao usually solve problems on the spot in the desert. Xiaohao's on-site engineers dig a small pit and fill it in after completion, which is very environmentally friendly. Xiaohao is even simpler, just open the gate and release water. Several sets of medical emergency treatment kits, including heatstroke prevention, disinfection, anti-inflammatory drugs, hemostatic, analgesic, and antipyretic drugs, as well as medical protective clothing, gauze, cotton, syringes, and more. These preparations stem from Enron's many years of professional survival habits, preventing potential risks and preparing for unexpected needs. Especially for this live desert exploration, there is a considerable amount of food storage available. There are currently 80 bags of sealed packaged raw steak, 50 bags of boned lamb chops, and 2 large pieces of pork ham. He usually likes to eat meat and enjoys it all. He likes to fry a steak, grill lamb chops and ham, sprinkle sesame seeds and other seasonings, and drink chilled beer, which is delicious. 2 bags of rice and 1 bag of flour. 80 plain eggs, half-boxed sealed fresh corn cobs with skin. Chilean watermelons, several cantaloupes, stored in the refrigerator's fresh keeping room. The side dishes for barbecue include onions, garlic, dried chili peppers in a large bag, salt, 5 spice powder, cumin powder, and other seasonings to enhance the flavor. A box of raw potatoes and half a box of raw sweet potatoes. 3.5 boxes of canned instant noodles, each box has 12 barrels. 550 milliliters bottle of purified water, 600 bottles. 8 cases of beer, 12 bottles of baijiu and 12 bottles of foreign wine. 9.5 packs of Huazi cigarettes. There are also some scattered miscellaneous items. This is Enron's total assets after crossing the river. At present, it seems that the storage of food and alcohol is relatively sufficient. By saving enough to eat for 3 to 5 months, it should be able to withstand the unknown desert. Given that we are still alone in a strange desert, our future is uncertain. Food and water appear precious. Therefore, it is necessary to plan the distribution of survival supplies such as food and water, which is a necessary wilderness survival literacy for a former Special Forces soldier. On the 7th day of the journey, 36 hours on the other star, Enron continued to search for about 1,200 kilometers in the east by car. Due to vigilance, we narrowly avoided several areas where giant beasts roamed along the way. Drones were used along the way, greatly expanding the exploration range and discovering many valuable targets. As we move eastward, life becomes increasingly diverse. Various unnamed insects and various desert lizards of all sizes are already very common. There are also more and more giant cactus plants. Moreover, for the first time, a large social organism has been discovered, slowly nibbling on the skin of cactus plants. Because of their lack of understanding, Enron did not rashly approach and observe this giant beast from afar through remote-controlled drones. The giant beast is shaped like a crocodile on Earth, with a wide and flat back, a slender body, and a thick neck as an adult. He has a huge head like a bullfighting bull, with two thick pointed horns that are as long as a person's head. The limbs resemble elongated and thickened crocodile limbs, with wide and thick soles, for toes, and webbed spaces between the toes. He has a huge body shape, with a shoulder height of about 3 meters and a body length of about 7 to 10 meters. The whole body is covered with palm-sized brown scales, and there is a thick crocodile tail with 2 rows of keratin thorns hanging from its buttocks. It weighs no less than an adult African elephant and should weigh over 7 or 8 tons. This beast runs smoothly and quickly, running as fast as a horse in the desert. They gather in groups of 3 or 5, foraging in the desert in various sizes. The eating method is simple and rough. First, use the hard and thick scales on your body to rub off the long spikes on the cactus, and then use your front teeth to tear and nibble on the green skin that is rich in moisture and nutrients. The light yellow sponge-like flesh inside is not eaten. Wherever it passed, the cactus was gnawed on and left in ruins, with a large amount of off-white gel-like liquid secreting and flowing out of the gnawed area, dripping all over the ground. The behavior of this giant beast excreting feces is very unique, just like the fecal shoveling official cat on Earth. Enron speculates that this behavior may be to mask the odor and prevent natural predators from tracking. This terrifying beast, which is intimidating from a distance, is probably the only natural enemy that can lurk in the sand. Chapter 5. Traces of Civilization. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the 8th day, we continued eastward for 400 kilometers, passing through a huge valley where a meteorite had fallen. Countless black meteorite blocks of all sizes were scattered throughout the valley. Some are exposed outside, while others are partially buried in the sand. It's the type of meteorite with a very high metal content, and Enron easily carried 7 or 8 meteorites weighing over 100 kilograms in good condition into the car. In his perception, these things are valuable but not marketable on Earth. Especially for meteorites with rich metal content, it is possible to pick up a fist-sized piece and sell it, which will basically give financial freedom in the latter half of one's life. One can imagine its value. Perhaps this alien world will also pass through, and perhaps these meteorites will be the capital for him to make a fortune after coming to this alien world. The terrain of the desert in this area has begun to change, no longer just a flat landscape. But instead, crisscrossing sand dunes, heavily weathered rocky mountains, and gullies emerged. Unknown drought-tolerant plants have begun to emerge in some gullies, and unknown giant mammal skeletons have been occasionally discovered. These findings indicate that the environment ahead is gradually improving, and perhaps there will be fundamental changes in the next section of the road, such as the emergence of oases, grasslands, or rivers with abundant water and grass. On the morning of the 9th day, the first super sandstorm that had crossed the country was encountered, and it ravaged from the southeast direction for most of the time before it subsided. Enron, who could not be explored, could only find a safe and leeward foothold to rest for a whole day. On the 10th day, charged the tank for 1 day. In the evening, Enron launched a tank and continued to drive eastward through a basin spanning several tens of kilometers and several intersecting rocky mountain ranges. The unmanned aerial vehicle in automatic search mode sent back a warning message that an unidentified artificial flying object was detected in the air about 3 kilometers southeast, about 10 kilometers ahead. Enron took over the drone through the terminal control system and flew towards the southeast direction. In about 5 or 6 minutes, through the onboard high-definition camera, I saw a strong wind blowing in the southeast direction, carrying a large amount of thin sand and dust. Amidst the drifting sand and dust, a earthy yellow blanket-like creature the size of a bed sheet fluttered in the sunset, moving high or low in the wind. The blanket-shaped object has some damage in the middle, with a large irregular dark pattern around it. Blanket. Artificial object is right, that's great. Enron in the car looked excited at this moment. The haze that had been shrouded in my heart for several days finally swept away at the moment when it was confirmed that it was a man-made creation, and my whole spirit was uplifted. Turn the steering wheel and accelerate towards the southeast direction. About 20 minutes later, Enron drove and tracked to the top of a raised sand dune more than 400 meters ahead of the flying carpet. Stopped the car, retrieved the drone with limited battery life, put on anti-sand goggles, opened the car door, and jumped down. A gentle breeze blew towards me, taking away the slightly stuffy air around me. At this point, the wind has weakened significantly, and the flying carpet is falling to a height of less than 100 meters under the influence of gravity. Fluttering left and right, swaying in the wind and landing on a gentle slope 100 meters ahead of Enron, wriggling restlessly. As if complaining about the strong wind throwing it to the ground and getting away. It feels like being at a loss to welcome the guest from another star, Enron, with joy. With an excited mood, Enron quickly ran over, grabbed the blanket, and looked at it up close. I saw that it felt a bit rough to handle, as thick as canvas, and the fabric material was similar to hemp on Earth. Judging from the level of detail handling, it is highly likely that handmade woven goods are not of high level. This should be the cloak used by pedestrians in the desert to shade from the sun and prevent wind and sand, and Rand gave a more confident judgment. Because he has been wandering around the Middle East and North Africa for years, cloaks like this are quite common and not difficult to identify. Flip over to the clearly damaged dark pattern in the middle and take a closer look. Hiss. Is this a dry stain of blood? I leaned closer to my nose with suspicion in my heart and sniffed. The smell of blood was obvious, it's blood stains, and the residual time is not long. The damaged opening was made by a sharp tool, with neat cuts and sharp edges. Traveling through 10 different stars and descending from the sky, I have traveled nearly 3,500 kilometers, and the nameless desert is still boundless. Massive and despairing, with no human habitation, and no artificial flying objects such as airplanes passing through the sky. Enron once doubted whether this planet was still in a very primitive era and had not given birth to a civilization. Fortunately, hard work pays off for those who have a heart, and for the first time, local civilization creations have been discovered. Through this cloak and residual bloodstains, information can be obtained that the individual body size of civilized creatures on this planet should be similar to that of humans. They wear clothes, their blood is also red, they can manufacture tools and weapons, have aggression, and their intelligence is definitely not low. The activity range may come from the southeast direction and should not be very far from here. This can be inferred from the freshness of the residual bloody smell, as well as clues such as desert wind speed and direction. Other clues are temporarily limited and we cannot know the development status of civilization on this planet. We need to obtain more clues to make further inferences. This cloak is of great commemorative significance to Enron, but it is highly unlikely that it is a deadly artifact. Even for former Special Forces soldiers like Enron, who have killed many people, although it is common, in the old Chinese saying, it is unlucky. Looking at the sky, dusk has quietly arrived and we can no longer continue exploring today. We will only take action tomorrow after we have rested. Having made a decision in his heart, Enron threw away his cloak and turned to walk towards his chariot. Through the hazy twilight, the chariot on the top of the sand dune looked like a giant beast, overlooking the endless darkness invading the distance, with high fighting spirit. After a long night without words, time quietly arrived at 9:30 a.m. on the 11th day. After practicing for hours in the morning, Enron quickly washed up and finished his personal hygiene. After finishing his homemade nutritious breakfast, he started his tank and headed southeast. With the drone flying over a distance of about 50 kilometers, it advanced with a detection radius of about 50 kilometers, providing a much broader perspective. The drone has 2 sets of backup power batteries for continuous flight turnover. The tank advanced at a speed of 60 kilometers per hour for nearly 6 hours, and gradually discovered some cloaks and broken pieces of cloth. Enron did not stop any longer and continued driving for 3 hours. There are more and more clues along the way, all pointing in one direction. Southeast. Unconsciously arrived at noon. At this point, the tank had stopped and Enron, feeling a bit hungry, was nibbling on the greasy roasted lamb chops on his hands. There was also a bucket of steaming instant noodles on the small dining table next to him, staring at the detection footage from the drone's perspective on the central screen while eating. At this point, the drone has replaced its power battery 5 times and has been flying continuously for 9 hours, approaching the upper limit of a single continuous flight. It will take another hour or so to control the drone to return and rest. If we switch to civilian quality, it may have been discontinued for so long. Fortunately, it is a military product that is durable, reliable, and stable. Attention, attention, a large suspicious target has been found on the ground 8 kilometers ahead. An electronic alarm sounded. Chapter 6. The Fierce Shura Field. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Attention. Attention. A large area of suspicious targets were found on the ground 8 kilometers ahead. Have you locked in and observed them closely? A confirmation pop-up window pops up on the central control display screen. Enron was enjoying his meal in the wind, but the prompt interrupted his meal. Ignoring everything else, he quickly issued a confirmation command to the drone. Hiccup. Finally made a new discovery. Enron, who was eating a bit fast, unconsciously let out a full hiccup. Spitting out the heat in my chest, I gathered my energy and stared at the drone detection footage, gradually getting closer to the location of the suspicious target. From a high-altitude perspective, one can see a vast and flat desert from afar, densely dotted with countless irregular objects of all sizes. The coverage area is fan-shaped, sloping from southeast to northwest and stretching for several kilometers. At this time, the distance is quite far, and it is temporarily unclear what these objects are. As the drones gradually approached, the true face of Mount Lu in the fan-shaped area finally appeared on the car's large screen. Damn it, they're all human corpses. Enron's eyes were wide open, shocked beyond measure. Some people couldn't believe it as they looked at the densely packed irregular objects on the big screen, mostly corpses half buried in the sand, with a similar appearance to humans on Earth. Some exposed their sun-dried and blackened arms, burying their bodies high and bulging in the sand. Some have their heads half exposed, while others have their bodies and cloaks wrapped together, revealing a small part of their back, with no visible head or face. More often, there is the separation of corpses, with one head here and another headless or half body there. Most of the clothes worn on these corpses are gray, turquoise, earthy yellow, and off-white, with long hair tied up in a jet black color. The drone flew back and forth over the fan-shaped area, passing through a sea of corpses that could not be counted, estimated to be as massive as 1,000,000. Such a large-scale death scene is probably only recorded in historical books. At this moment, even the former Special Forces soldier Enron, who is accustomed to life and death and has always been calm in his heart, is deeply shaken. This is a unilateral massacre. Who, what forces did it, and for what reason cruelly slaughtered so many lives? And for what reason were these dead forced to flee to such a desolate and uninhabited desert? Unknowingly, Enron's heart was filled with questions one after another. It is necessary to go to the scene to have a look. In order to further understand the scene of the corpse sea, the completed drone was recovered. With a complex and heavy heart, Enron slowly drove to the southern edge of the fan-shaped area and stopped. To prevent the possible presence of unknown harmful viruses in the corpse sea, he took a set of disposable medical protective clothing from the car and put it on. Wearing a mask, he flipped over from the tank with a dog-leg military knife and an engineering shovel, and braved the scorching sun and heat waves to explore the sea of corpses. First, walk forward and stop, then continue south and stop until you reach the edge, then turn back and explore the northwest for nearly a kilometer. From time to time, squat down and use a knife to pick and move the body, or use an engineering shovel to scrape the sand twice and play with some things in the sand. After more than an hour of investigation, the stuffiness was unbearable, and Enron had to return to the car. After burning off disposable protective clothing and undergoing necessary disinfection measures on people and tools, they eagerly got into the car to cool down. Just like this, following the west side of the Corpse Sea, Enron enters the Corpse Sea for reconnaissance every distance she moves forward. We advanced all the way to the northwest end of the Corpse Sea and used several sets of protective clothing to roughly investigate the entire Corpse Sea. Although the harvest is full, Enron cannot be happy, as it is the nature of a normal human. Even guests from other stars, facing such a tragic scene of corpses everywhere, feel heavy and unable to breathe. Throughout the entire sea of corpses, the bloody smell remains strong. Judging from the dryness of the body, the sunny side has been sun-dried and hard. Facing the sand, the muscle tissue and internal organs of the corpse and semi-buried corpse are still rotting. Occasionally, some unknown insects attach to the corpse and nibble on it. Based on the above speculation, the massacre should not exceed 1 week. Judging from the attire, it looks a bit like what ancient people wore, mostly with coarse cloth long shirts added to the body, fabric straps tied around the waist, and cloth shoes on the feet. There are men, women, and children. Most of the scattered objects around the body are broken pottery or wooden vessels, as well as a small amount of metal fragments made of bronze. There are also many brown and hard foods similar to pancakes, which have a faint earthy smell. Some are scattered in the sand, while others are in cloth bags. This should be dry food. At the narrowest southern end of the Dead Sea, a large number of bronze metal weapons were found, almost all of which were severely damaged. Some of them are probably broken spearheads, some are broken wide-edged short swords, and there are also many damaged skin-armored hand shields. The manufacturing level of these weapons is relatively low, and the toughness and strength of bronze are not very high. No creations with high technological content similar to modern times have been found. Even without any steel products, the level of civilization is speculated to be in the relatively backward early stage of cold weapons. This is obviously a battlefield, where intense resistance and fighting have occurred. The death of the corpse also indicates this point. Almost all of them are tall adult males, with hair tied and mostly wearing brown leather armor, which should be used for protection. The skeleton is very thick, and most of them are over 1.8 meters tall. There are very few females, and there are no children. Fatal injuries are almost always on the front of the body. Those who had their necks cut open, their chests cut open, half of their faces gone, their heads split open, and sharp weapons passed through their bodies. Many were also split in half, resulting in an extremely tragic death. Strangely, there were no clues found from the massacrers' side here, as if they had deliberately cleaned the battlefield. Another strange thing is that in the sand on the battlefield, a large number of black and blue scales, the size of fingernail covers, were found to be extremely hard, and sharp military knives needed to be used hard to cut them apart. I don't know what kind of animal it was, but Enron speculated that it might be a piece of armor that fell off the protective armor of the slaughtering party, or a piece of scale that fell off a certain mount during battle. This battlefield lasted for nearly a kilometer, and it is also the area with the highest concentration of dead people. Nearly 20,000 people died here, and the bottom sand was soaked into dark red with blood. It can be imagined how fierce the resistance was. The further you head northwest, the weaker the resistance becomes. Only scattered remnants of the battle are found, which may indicate that the previous resistance team has been defeated. Starting from this area, the range of corpses spread in a fan-shaped pattern, with most of the deceased being killed from behind. Women and children are starting to increase, and most of them are from different places. It's strange that no elderly people have been found dead. It is also rare to find the black and blue scales that appear on the front battlefield. In the final area of the northwest, traces of fierce fighting were found again, with a scale much smaller than before, about 4,000 to 5,000 people, probably the remaining troops who fought to the death. In addition to scattered fragments of bronze weapons, a large number of abandoned and damaged items were also found, such as wooden drums as large as water tanks and two-wheeled vehicles. Next to it, there is an occasional dead monster with a shoulder height of over 2 meters, as big as a high-headed horse, covered with a layer of egg-sized blue scales. There is a cone-shaped unicorn that is over half a meter long on its head, and its tail is shaped like a crocodile tail, resembling a legendary unicorn in overall shape. Some only have limbs left, as if they have been bitten and eaten by some large animal. The wooden bucket should be used to hold water, while the cart and unicorn should be used to pull water and supplies. Many of the people who were slaughtered in this area were dressed in softer, smoother, and lighter silk fabrics, with brighter and more diverse colors. The shoes worn are also carefully crafted leather goods, with a thick and elastic sole that fits comfortably with the legs, which is much more high-end than the coarse and hard cloth shoes worn by the majority of people in front. It is speculated that this group should have a higher social status before their lives. In addition, a major discovery was made by finding several thick books made of animal skin, which used characters very similar to Chinese oracle bone inscriptions. The lines that make up the characters appear slightly rounded and soft, with a certain degree of beauty. Some people can even guess the general meaning through their glyphs, such as abstract characters like hands, eyes, sun, and mountains. Moreover, these people have black hair and yellowish skin, which makes Enron doubt whether they have some connection with ancient China. Chapter 7. Terrifying Humanoid Creatures. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As dusk approached, I brought back the few animal skin books and disinfected them as necessary for further research. With more doubts, I safely returned to the car. Next, there will be two options. One is to continue advancing towards the southeast, where the probability of leaving the desert should be very high. However, the risk of exposure is also high, with more unknown risk factors. After all, the power of the massacrers must come from that direction, where there must be a civilized society, and where there are people, the danger is unpredictable. If someone dares to come into contact with local civilization without sufficient understanding, they will face incalculable risks if they harbor malice. Even with a small arsenal, there is not much sense of security. From the current situation, the probability of malice is higher. Another option is to search along the direction where the slaughtered party fled. There may be survivors fleeing in that direction, which can further understand the follow-up dynamics of the pursued party. If necessary and circumstances permit, rescue efforts can be made. As a savior, the risk of encountering local civilization should be reduced, and it is also convenient to integrate and take some initiative in the future. It is also possible to encounter a pursuer. However, if there is a drone leading the way, the risk can be minimized. After comparing the two, Enron ultimately chose the second option with lower risk. Once it's fixed, take immediate action tomorrow morning, Enron said decisively in her heart. Unconsciously, time arrived on the afternoon of the 13th day. At this point, Enron had already driven towards the northwest to search for about 1,400 kilometers. Finally, a reconnaissance drone 15 kilometers ahead sent back a message, revealing two groups of people, one large and one small, marching in the desert under scorching heat of over 40 degrees Celsius. The distance between the two sides is less than 10 kilometers, and the large group of people ahead are fugitives. Based on the estimated size, there are tens of thousands of people, and the team stretches for nearly a kilometer. The small group behind is the pursuer, with a scale of about 3,000 people, separated by a small mountain range that is hundreds of meters high. During the 2-day tracking and search process, Enron did not find any traces of the two sides tearing each other apart. It should have been biting tightly, but it didn't catch up with the fleeing party. Along the way, more abandoned items, tattered clothing, damaged vehicles, wooden barrels, and books were discovered. A great discovery that enraged Enron was that it was an unknown party that was eating people, and more accurately, eating young children. Watching the scattered little hand bones and leg bones, as well as the randomly stacked little child skulls without skull and brain tissue on the side, and the remaining young limbs in the fire pit that had not been eaten, it was disgusting and couldn't bear to look directly at them. This scene triggered the past of Enron's mission to rescue hostages in a country in southern Africa. At that time, a Chinese family, including 2 children, who contracted land for planting in the country, were abducted by a local indigenous separatist tribe and brought into the depths of the primitive forest without a trace. When Enron and his mobile special forces rushed over to rescue, the adults were brutally killed and thrown into the wilderness, while the 2 children were brutally roasted and eaten by the savage indigenous people, leaving only a small pile of young children's bones. The enraged mobile special forces chased and killed for 3 days and 3 nights in the primitive forest, almost washing out all the adults of that indigenous tribe. This situation and scene, just like before. As a former Chinese soldier who takes it as his own responsibility to protect his family and country, he is full of courage and determination. Although retired for many years and living on a different planet, the military soul in my bones still exists. Upon seeing this, Enron's blood surged and he gritted his steel teeth, burning with anger. Eating people, especially human children, has no moral bottom line for humans, only savage animal nature. These perpetrators have been listed by Enron as objects that must be eliminated, regardless of their identity or identity. The drone, which had almost reached its endurance, was ordered to return and replace its battery. Enron chased after it in a tank. Following behind a small group of people in a hidden area 2 kilometers away, operating a drone to observe them up close. He wanted to see what kind of divine these pursuers, who had slaughtered at least tens of thousands of humans, were. They persistently went deep into the desert to hunt down the fugitives for at least 10 days. At this point, the vanguard of the pursuers had already climbed to the top of the small mountain range, and the drones were hovering just 200 to 300 meters above the top. The military electric-driven drone has a very good mute effect, and it is difficult to hear without paying attention. Through the onboard high-power zoom camera, the mysterious veil of the pursuer has finally been uncovered. Tevagon, look, those despicable 2-legged bugs are not far ahead. Notify the team behind to speed up and catch up. I want to end this annoying chase game today. I aspire to win their golden scripture. I have had enough of this terrible desert environment. Yes, esteemed Lord Galadu, you are right. The golden scripture will surely be your spoils of war, and I will immediately issue the order. At the top of the mountain, at the forefront of the team, a majestic beast shaped like a lion and as big as an African elephant, with palm-sized golden scales, sits on its back. A terrifying humanoid creature wearing a huge purple and gold cloak, with some unknown mysterious patterns printed on it, sits. Humanoid creatures are covered in white scales the size of nails, with well-developed muscles and a wide, thick, and sturdy body. They are at least 3 meters tall by sight. At this moment, he was holding out a scaly arm as thick as an adult's waist, holding a 2-meter-long wide silver giant sword in his big hand, pointing towards the group of fleeing people and horses not far from the foot of the mountain. Next to this biological mount, there stands a subordinate who is dressed in an orange cloak, covered in blue scales, slightly shorter, and also a huge and burly figure. The two were conversing in some low and incomprehensible language. The pronunciation is deep and rich, similar to the low roar of a lion. The blue-scaled humanoid creature holds a bird-like creature on its arm, as large as a golden eagle, with gray fine scales and a pair of brownish-red fleshy wings. At this moment, this creature is tilting its head, one eye fixed on the sky above its head, and its mouth is emitting. Dumb. Mute. Mute. The crow-like chirping sound is like a warning. The white-scaled humanoid creature was attracted by the call and cast a surprised look, then looked up at the sky. From the perspective of the drone, a humanoid creature's face is covered in fine white scales, with a terrifying appearance. The eyebrows are high, the eye sockets are deep, and the cheekbones are raised. A pair of giant eyes shaped like crocodiles' erect pupils, and 4 thick, curved fangs resembling saber-toothed tigers, crisscrossing on both sides of a terrifying mouth that cracks to the base of the ear. The huge hairless mountain-shaped concave convex head shimmered with a sparkling white light under the sunlight. Behind them, the team extending all the way to the foot of the mountain were humanoid creatures of the same kind, standing over 2.5 to 3 meters tall, with a sturdy upper body bare, covered in green or black scales the size of nails, wearing a brown patterned cloak, and hanging a wide silver sword on the waist. In addition, at the foot of the mountain, there are over 300 young human men wearing silver metal rings around their necks and finger-thick metal chains at one end. The two are connected together, dressed in tattered and dirty clothing. They either carry a huge package that is 1 person tall on their back, or work in pairs to drive a load-bearing wooden cart pulled by a green scale unicorn. Among them, 2 cars were loaded with dozens of human children tied together with hands and feet. Hanging behind are dozens of humanoid creatures holding blood whips, driving humans to the height of their stomachs towards the mountaintop. That should be those little insects' reconnaissance birds. They have discovered us, sir. The green-scaled humanoid creature looked up at the drone in the air, treating it as a special type of bird. Tevagon, order the following team to follow and charge with me. After giving orders, the white-scaled humanoid creature drove the giant beast towards the foot of the mountain. Then only a few rhythmic lion-like low whistles were heard, and the entire team's speed suddenly increased significantly. This is the true face of the pursuer captured by drones, completely overturning Enron's existing understanding. Chapter 8. Warning. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Damn it, I was discovered. It's not human, orc. Dinosaur. What kind of race is this? It's so tall and ferocious. These giant creatures are robust and terrifying, somewhat like the villain black dwarfs in Marvel's movie Avengers. Enron's mind recalled the appearance of the black dwarf stars in the Marvel film series, compared to the terrifying humanoid creatures covered in scales on the screen in front of him. It's like some kind of scaly dinosaur evolved with humanoid features, so let's call it dinosaur humans, Enron classified in her heart. They enslaved humans and captured many human children. The piles of human children's bones and limbs before should have been done by these dinosaur people, who ate human children. Thinking of this, Enron's anger surged in her chest, wishing to rush over now and turn this group of child-eating animals to ashes. The equipment of this group of dinosaur people is quite sophisticated, with silver metal weapons and significantly more advanced craftsmanship than the bronze weapons discovered by Enron in the Corp C area before. The overall level of technology cannot be said, but in terms of weapon manufacturing, it is much more advanced than the humans here. From these two advantages, it can be understood why a mere 3,000 dinosaur humans could slaughter over 100,000 humans. One is that their body shape is much larger than that of humans, just like the difference in height and physique between the Hulk and an ordinary person. It can be imagined that the power gap between the two is definitely huge. Secondly, those standard giant swords are taller than humans, with a width of over 20 centimeters, and an estimated weight of several hundred pounds per handle. These humanoid tanks charging into the crowd were like chopping melons and vegetables, destroying everything. Human beings are simply unbeatable in front of them, let alone falling behind in weapons. Even with 1,000 pounds of immense strength, they cannot withstand it. They also have extremely strong defensive scales on their bodies, and even sharp military knives are difficult to break. It's hard to imagine how strong their defense is. With so many advantages added, how can humans compete? Watching the army of dinosaur humans charging forward, Enron quickly controlled the drones to fly towards the side of the fleeing humans. At this point, the dinosaur humans were less than 5 kilometers away from the fleeing humans. At the current speed, they were rushing down from the mountaintop and could not be caught up in time. For humans, it was a catastrophic disaster, and the situation was very severe. The drone's power was fully turned on, and the buzzing sound suddenly became louder. In a few minutes, it reached the sky above the fleeing human side. I saw that the humans below had stopped and were resting in place in a long backlit depression, unaware that the danger was approaching. Under the high magnification and high-definition camera, it was finally clear what these fugitives looked like. The leading group is a convoy of hundreds of strong men and hundreds of tall, green-scaled unicorn beasts pulling carts. Most of the carts are loaded with large wooden barrels and semi-deflated large cloth bags, with a few wooden boxes and relatively small children mixed together. Following behind are a large group of underage children and middle-aged and young women. About half of the entire team are underage human children. The younger children are carried by women and some slightly older teenagers, while the older children are all gathered together by 30 or 40 people. There are over 3,000 strong adult men behind the team, mostly topless, holding bronze spears and short swords, as well as some holding wooden sticks and shields. At the back, there are 20 or 30 people riding green-scaled unicorn beasts, and a few riders are scattered behind the team to guard. Others were gathered around a middle-aged man in the middle, dressed in a wide white cloak, quietly discussing something, looking at the atmosphere as more solemn. The whole team gives Enron a feeling of a very oppressive atmosphere, depressed and lacking in energy, including the originally lively and energetic children. Big leader, the temperature is hot and everyone is exhausted. Since entering the desert, we have been escaping for a whole 14 days without stopping to rest properly. Half of the team are children, and everyone has reached their limit. Let them rest a little longer, otherwise many people will not be able to hold on. A middle-aged man in a blue shirt riding on a green-scaled unicorn beast, with a tired and helpless expression, complained to the strong man in the middle. Yes, Chief, the children are already exhausted, and many young children have fallen ill, another person agreed. Other riders also joined in. Sigh. The strong man in the middle, who was called the leader, let out a bitter sigh. I can understand what you're saying and see the current situation of the team. I also hope to give everyone a good rest, but when I think of 10 days ago. His tone was somewhat sad, just because I rested a few more hours, the result. You all saw it. The strong man's tone choked up, his eyes tearful. Our team, the Du tribe, had 150,000 members when they entered the desert, and that day over 130,000 living members were slaughtered by our enemies. If it weren't for our soldiers in the war hall fighting hard to resist, I don't think we would be like us now. They bought us time to escape with their lives. Look at the group of children and women ahead. The strong man pointed ahead and looked up at the rest crowd ahead, with everyone looking sideways. Some of their wives and children are there, you say, can we watch their wives and children being slaughtered again? He roared emotionally with tears in his eyes. Never. Cannot. The crowd became furious, their eyes wide open, and a fierce light suddenly appeared. Even many people gritted their steel teeth and their eyes were filled with tears. Pass the order, don't stay any longer, let everyone and the children grit their teeth and persist, and quickly get rid of the enemy chasing behind. We cannot take the enemy to a place of refuge, where there are still hundreds of thousands of people. Otherwise, everyone present will be eternal criminals, the strong man ordered firmly. Hurry, hurry. Get up, run, the enemy is chasing us. Suddenly, there was a rapid shout of warning from behind. I saw several people responsible for guarding, finally attracted by the buzzing sound of the drone flying at high speed. They noticed a large black spot rushing towards the bottom of the sand mountain behind them. Dingchuan, Zhuxing, Shui, and Qianhe, the four of you quickly bring half of your troops to the front to help the children. I don't care how you use it, take all the children with you, run forward as fast as possible, and leave the back to us to resist. The strong leader shouted urgently. Through the drone, Enron saw the originally quiet resting team below suddenly panicking. The vast majority of people are panicked and don't know where to go, and some young children are scared and start crying. Fortunately, it was just a brief panic and quickly stabilized. Led by a team of 100 people in front, they quickly started running. Among the more than 3,000 armed personnel behind the cushion, half of them quickly split out and ran to the children's team, holding one hand under their armpits and sprinting vigorously, each with a speed comparable to the sprint speed of the 100-meter flying race. The remaining half of the armed personnel followed closely behind the team in an orderly manner, guarding the enemy in the rear. Chapter 9. Strong Exit. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Two groups of people and horses chased each other for almost an hour. After flipping over a depression and crossing over a dozen sand dunes of varying sizes, both sides arrived at a flat and open area. The team of dinosaur humans chasing after them gradually caught up, and the distance between the two sides was less than 2 kilometers. At this very moment, the speed of the fleeing human team gradually slowed down. I have no choice but to endure the scorching sun and high temperature, which consumes a huge amount of physical energy. In addition, almost everyone carries more or less weight to move forward. To be honest, after running for almost an hour in an already exhausted state, it can be said that the potential has already exploded. I saw that almost all the adults in the entire team turned red, panting heavily, their chests heaving and heaving like bellows, with constant moans. Everyone's body was washed like water, soaked through, and their legs were as heavy as if they had been filled with lead. Every move was extremely difficult. Not far away, one can already hear the enemy's unique lion-like low roar, like the desperate sound of the undead in hell, which is frightening and unsettling. At this moment, the dinosaur team has been chasing fiercely for so long in such a harsh and high-temperature environment. Even if their physical fitness is much better than that of humans, and their physical strength is much stronger, they are still as fast as their physical limits. After all, they were huge in size and consumed a lot, and dinosaur humans had scales and armor all over their bodies, without pores or sweat glands that could regulate body temperature balance through sweating. The only thing that can dissipate heat is their terrifying big mouths and bloody long tongues. So, at this moment, you will find that those running dinosaur people are all holding out their terrifying mouths and long, bloody tongues, panting heavily. Some even occasionally let out a few low growls, creating a terrifying visual and auditory effect. 2 kilometers behind, Enron was driving his tank and rushing towards this side, searching for a flatter path. There are too many sand dunes here, many of which are quite steep, and tanks can only detour and cannot reach the maximum speed. Seeing the dinosaur team about to catch up with the human team, Enron was also very anxious in her heart. 5 minutes later, the distance between the two sides was less than 1 kilometer, and Enron's car had already detoured to the last sand dune. By bypassing this sand dune, one could drive straight into the flat sand. 10 minutes later, the distance between the two sides was less than 200 meters, and Enron had driven out of the sand dunes to reach a flat area. At this moment, the three sides are just forming a finished shape, and Enron's tank is circling to the left between the two, about 1 kilometer away. The human team has stopped, all those who can afford weapons. Whether it's men, women, or half-grown teenagers, they all follow their leader and face the army of dinosaur people chasing after them. The atmosphere of fear, pessimism, and despair permeates the human side, and many children and women have started to cry. On the other hand, the team of dinosaur people kept roaring incessantly, forming a terrifying force. Although they were also very tired, their eyes were fierce and their expressions were excited. Many people had already taken off their brown cloaks and threw them on the ground, drawing out their giant swords and pointing towards the human side. For humans, the hope of escape is already very slim, the retreat is almost cut off, and only a desperate battle can be fought. They don't want to give up human dignity at the last moment, and they don't want to be slaughtered like livestock. At this moment, everyone clung tightly to their weapons, gritted their teeth, and glared angrily at the approaching enemy. Both sides seemed to have entered a certain state of focus, completely oblivious to a strange steel chariot rushing towards them, even though a large and conspicuous sandstorm was raised from behind. Enron dared to expose himself so blatantly, and his confidence came from his small arsenal. The speeding chariot was only 100 meters away from both sides, and a very piercing emergency brake sound sounded. The stopped chariot swore its existence like an ancient ferocious beast. This sudden appearance finally aroused the two sides who were about to fight together, and both sides turned their heads in confusion to look at the strange thing that appeared. What kind of ghost thing is this, unlike some kind of giant beast or other artificial creatures? Is it the opponent's secret weapon? Someone on both sides began to speculate. In the car, Enron had already arrived at the back of the trunk, picked up a sniper rifle from the military arsenal, and carried a 14.5 mm long-range sniper on his back. Skillfully open the roof-closing window, turn on the power, and raise the combat platform filled with ammunition to the top of the roof. Then open the safety of the sniper rifle, aim the gun and pull the trigger, all in one go. Bang! A crisp gunshot rang out. The entire process from sudden braking to shooting is very brief. At the moment when the gunshots rang out, a white-scaled dinosaur man on a tall lion-shaped beast was seen in front of the team of dinosaur people, holding a huge sword and pointing towards the humans in front of him, with a proud expression still hanging on his face. Suddenly, the huge head tilted sharply to the right, with a large scale exploding and flying. The burning red bullet strangely stuck in the opponent's skull, revealing a section of the tail emitting white smoke. Ah! The person who was shot covered their head with both hands, arched their body and let out a terrifying scream. Their fierce and ugly face showed a very painful expression, and the giant sword held in their right hand fell. The sound of gunfire caused both sides to cast surprised gazes, which confused the dinosaur people and also shocked the human side. Why is it so good that the enemy riding the giant beast starts screaming with their heads in their arms? Why is Lord Galachi, who has always been majestic, terrifying, and strong, now holding his head in agony and howling? The puzzled question marks on both sides emerged from their hearts, without any association with the strange vehicle and the noise that had just appeared. Oh Tefik, surprisingly, his head hasn't exploded. Even his iron skull should have a hole in it. What kind of monster is this? It's so fierce. The scene seen in the sight glass almost made Enron's eyes pop out, and a look of shock appeared on her face. It's unbelievable that a 7.62 mm caliber sniper rifle didn't hit its head, and even an elephant couldn't carry it on Earth. One shot only shattered a few scales. Although not as powerful as the terrifying sand-walking giant, this physical defense has been startled to safety. Originally with the idea of capturing the king first, he shot the leader of the dinosaur man as soon as he stepped out, hoping to shake off the momentum of the dinosaur man's charge and disrupt their attack rhythm. But there was an unexpected debut. Watching the leader of the dinosaur man still howling with his head covered, Enron quickly grabbed the big sniper on his back. Look at how hard your head is, whether it's your head iron or my bullet steel. Aim, shoot. Bang! A dull and heavy gunshot sounded. I saw the white-scaled dinosaur man holding his head and howling in pain, with a large explosion on one side of his head. The shattered skull, scales, and flesh mixed with brain tissue flew far away, splattering everywhere. The huge body was overturned by the impact of the bullet and fell under the giant beast, convulsing and trembling a few times before becoming silent. Adults. Adults under attack, protect them. Hurry up, urgently protect them. The blue-scaled dinosaur man was frightened by an unknown factor in front of him, and let out a terrifying roar. He panicked and ran towards the white-scaled dinosaur man who had fallen to the ground. At this moment, the bewildered dinosaur finally knew what had happened, and the formation that was preparing to charge was shattered in response. Almost all dinosaurs swarmed around the area where the white-scaled dinosaur was located. Chapter 10. All Shockkills. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It's still a good tool with a large caliber, finally it's taken down. Oh, that's a great opportunity. I didn't expect to have such an additional effect after killing the white-scaled dinosaur man. His subordinates were all gathered together, it was really a godsend opportunity. Enron saw the situation and did not stay too long. He quickly threw down the big sniper, grabbed the heavy machine gun with both hands, and aimed at the dense group of dinosaurs to pull the trigger. Da-da-da. A continuous sound of heavy machine guns rang out, and heavy firepower sprayed a strong chain of fire towards the crowd gathered by the dinosaur people. Wherever they passed, the formidable dinosaur army collapsed in patches like cutting wheat. Blood and flesh scales flew horizontally, howling in agony. Occasionally, bullets hit the giant sword of the dinosaur man with a clanging sound, and sparks flickered everywhere. Tell you to eat human children. Tell you to enslave humanity. Tell you to slaughter so many humans. Call you an alien race. You look so ugly and cruel. Enron was frantically losing heavy firepower while muttering softly, venting the nameless emotions and anger that had been weighing on his chest for so many days. On the battlefield, the dinosaur man suddenly collapsed in patches, with flesh and scales flying horizontally and howling in agony. This shocking scene finally caused panic among everyone. This kind of unknown and bizarre death has never been seen before, and the visual impact and spiritual shock make them start to feel fear, which in turn triggers a chain reaction. The collapse began, and all the dinosaurs began to compete to escape this unknown dead zone. However, the result was an even more crowded cycle, with Enron being caught and shot to the ground in pieces. Ha ha ha, it's satisfying, enjoyable, ha ha ha. Enron, who was on the rise of killing, burst out laughing heartily, almost drowned out by the roar of the heavy machine gun. On the side of the human fugitive, all humans who can see the condition of the dinosaur person on the opposite side can be seen at this time. Either open your mouth wide with an incredulous expression on your face. Either they stared at their blood-red eyes, their faces turning red and white, in a state of shock and confusion. They couldn't imagine this eerie scene of subverting cognition. There are still a few fish that missed the net. About 3,000 dinosaur people were almost slaughtered by Enron at a visible speed. The entire process didn't take more than 10 minutes, and wherever the crowd was dense, they would shoot indiscriminately. The 14.5mm caliber high-power machine gun bullets were not covered. A single bullet can kill 2 or 3 dinosaur people in a straight line. Who would let these foolish dinosaur people gather together? This is not about giving heads, the killing efficiency is surprisingly high. However, ammunition consumption was also considerable, with over 2,000 rounds fired and the long barrel burning hot and turning red. At this moment, Enron has set the machine gun to shooting mode, shooting at some scattered dinosaur humans one by one. The entire position of the dinosaur human just now, except for the lion-shaped giant beast restlessly spinning around, no standing creatures can be seen. The corpses were densely piled up together, with many heavily injured and undead emitting waves of howls and groans, including the dozens of dinosaur people hanging behind them who were guarding human slaves and children, which were safely cleared. Bang! Bang! The gunfire finally stopped. It's gone, it's really not worth fighting. After finishing work, Enron returned to the cool driver's seat in the car and happily placed a flower on it, swallowing clouds and mist. The sound of this guy's tone feels like he's playing a single-player game. The scene of flesh and blood flying and corpses everywhere did not make him feel any discomfort when he was in an excited state. It feels like stepping on a nest of ants on the roadside, maybe because I've been used to life and death in my military career. Perhaps it was the killing of an alien race, or perhaps it was the pleasure of revenge for those who died under the knife of this group of dinosaur humans. The humans over there should be extremely shocked, probably they will need some time to react. Do they see me as some kind of divine weapon or superhero who saves humanity in their eyes? Smoking while thinking about how to interact with people on this planet, and not forgetting to indulge in sexual activity. When we make contact later, we need to be more confident and not lose the momentum of our Chinese soldiers. He began to be promiscuous. Well, with the profound and unpredictable appearance that has just been established, one should be more likely to receive treatment and respect. However, what's a bit bad is that both parties must have language barriers and communication barriers are inevitable. Let's take a closer look at each other. Enron, who had made up his mind, launched the chariot and slowly headed towards the human camp. In the human camp, at this moment, some people finally woke up from the huge shock, and the movement first came from the children's group. The cannibalistic demon has been eradicated. Children, we have been rescued. Don't cry anymore. Crying again will attract the cannibalistic demon again. A soft and magnetic female voice, half soothing and half threatening, came from the group of children. This move was very effective at this moment, and the child's crying stopped immediately. Then cheers began to ring in the group of children, who were the least burdened optimists. As soon as their fear was lifted, some curious children began whispering to each other about what was happening ahead. The group of adults also began to become restless, reflecting from shock and confusion. Big leader, we have been rescued. Those enemies have all fallen. They all died under the line of fire sprayed from that strange patterned object. We have been rescued. Big leader. A strapless strong man danced excitedly towards them, while another middle-aged strong man in a white cloak shouted loudly and looked at Enron's chariot with a look of awe on his face. Isn't this a dream? Pop pop. Ha ha ha, it's true, ha ha ha. Some people were afraid it was a dream, so they slapped themselves twice and laughed while touching their painful cheeks. Oh my goodness, we survived. Someone sighed with relief from the disaster. More people who narrowly escaped death, or a few holding their heads together, started crying loudly, or choked up with tears in their eyes. Everyone's expressions at this moment are very rich and diverse, with the only similarity being the emotion and celebration of surviving the disaster, as well as the awe in their eyes as they gaze in the direction of the Enron tank. We were really saved, that unknown and powerful existence saved us, whoa. The big leader, dressed in a white cloak, breathed a sigh of relief as he breathed out his turbid breath. What kind of person is he, why does he want to save us, and why is he so powerful? How can I thank the saving kindness of such a powerful Tsanglong person who was massacred by him? The leader's expression changed, with a look of awe overflowing in his words. Let's all be quiet, my people. Faced with the noisy scene of people venting their emotions around him, he raised his hands and pressed down, signaling everyone to calm down.